Um, and so this is for whoever isn't able to make it to the meeting. They can still find out what we are doing today. So, like I said before, guys, here we are, continuing to go on despite yesterday's event. And I do feel like what we're doing here now is more important than ever, because I think the um, political environment is going to be much more challenging um, in the next year. So, but I think that it's very important, the message that we are trying to put out. So let's get on to it. I will share screen once I find my share screen button. All right. Okay, so I had pulled up a agenda that we will kind of go through. And the first thing we wanted to talk about is the APSA position statement. If you guys remember, we've been working on this draft for, I guess, 2 months now. And it's something we want to put together and propose to the APSA board coming from our subcommittee. So we really want to hear from all of you guys tonight, so that we, feel that everyone's gotten their chance to contribute and put their perspective into the position statement. Colleen and I have put it together, and we wanted to share the draft with you guys. Hope you guys had a chance to look through it. And so today, part of it, maybe we can work on adding in more perspectives, more thoughts, wordsmithing, and stuff like that. So, everyone okay with that plan?
Mhm.
All right, great. So, Alfred.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for putting it together. It really reads very nicely and it's very exhaustive and um, it, I like it a lot. The only suggestion I have is to add the effect that climate change has on medical centers and how, and it's not just the effect on our patients, but the effect on the infrastructure of medical centers and healthcare centers. For example, how with Hurricane Sandy, how it destroyed, the ERs at NYU and a few other
Mm.
hospitals, and they couldn't work for 2 weeks, and how mitigation effects can make medical centers more resilient to climate change. And as an example, I believe Miami Children's Hospital spent some money and did some waterproofing, and in one of the hurricanes a couple of years ago, they were the only medical center in that town that was in that part of town that was open, and employees came and seek shelter at the children's hospital because of those mitigation factors. So it's a matter of survival too, not just for the patients but also for the medical centers themselves.
Oh, that's a great idea. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
bringing that up. I thought that's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great idea. I put it here in the intro. I thought that would be the best place to put it. Do you think there's a better location, Alfred, when you're
No,
reading it?
I think it would fit there. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I stuck it somewhere. I didn't even
Yeah.
like, but I think that's a great point to add in.
I can get you some references for those things, in the examples.
Please. Just one of my thoughts I was thinking to add here, to be a little bit like, maybe add another sentence that's a little bit more specific about the effects of um, climate change on pediatric surgical problems, because for sure it affects children in general in their healthcare. But I thought, since we were talking about APSA, that and I think there are examples. For example, Colleen and I were talking about that exposure to and particulates increases the risk of gastroschisis. And we looked at this paper together, and it seemed numbers seem convincing, although to me, like, blew my mind thinking about that. But wanted to add in something that was a little bit more specifically about pediatric surgery here. Alfred, I see you got your hand raised
Yeah,
again.
I'm sorry. Also, what you mentioned that made me think of the increase in traumatic injuries too, from both the actual climate change of events and also conflicts that are going to increase around the world from decreasing water resources and other scarcity of food and things like that from climate change that are going to cause increasing traumatic injuries. There are studies that have correlated those to climate change with the increasing conflicts and trauma. So,
Would you be able to provide those studies as well? Yeah, I can see a nod.
yeah, I'll have to look for them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Linda, I'll include the references that I was working with that I dropped the ball on, but they were basically the framework of essentially the intersection of the global inequities and basically the health consequences of this. So a lot of it just comes from the public health point of view of uh, like Alfred was saying, it, the, the problem is we get a little bit, it gets a little bit wordy, it gets a little bit lengthy. Even the section I wrote, I felt like really needed to be, sort of trimmed down, especially if we're dealing with a word limit. But I'll send you the three references. I think they were excellent. That could help.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, I didn't know if there was a word limit on this position statement. So basically, we put this together. I think Colleen, I know you're here. I
Yeah,
feel like I'm
yeah, I'm
speaking for you.
here. No, that's
Uh,
fine. I mean, I was looking at this as two separate things, right? So, Chris, I think we were talking about putting together a perspectives piece for publication in JPS. This I'm looking at more as an official like APSA position statement, the way that they have a position statement on like gun violence and I don't even remember what else. There's a bunch of them that are there on the website, right? So this would be
Of
more of
course.
an official, this is our organization is going to get behind the fact that like climate change is actually a thing and we need to engage in it
Okay,
or have
perfect.
feelings about it.
I was just gonna look up how long their other ones are.
It's very variable. I looked to try and find the format of,
Hmm.
what the standard APSA position statement is, and it seemed like it was pretty variable. And some of them are like a simple letter. It looked like I think the position statement that came out after the George Floyd murder in Minnesota is more of a letter, but then I think the gun violence one is almost like a full published article. So it's somewhat varied.
Where do they have it? Is it under advocacy here?
I honestly don't remember. That's the other
Oh,
thing is
APSA
it's
statements.
yeah,
It's all right. It's right in front of
there we
me.
go.
I remember working on the reproductive rights one. That one was only like a paragraph long, or a couple of paragraphs long. It wasn't like huge. This one's on equity and social justice. That's it right
And if
there.
I remember, like this one, I think this was when I think Jessica Candel was president, maybe, but I feel like it came out like really quickly, right? Like the event happened and this statement got published. So I feel like this was something that like the APSA leadership generated pretty quickly, like, in response to the event. Whereas I think something like we're working on and some of the other ones, it's not in response to a specific thing, right? So in my mind, it makes sense that that's why that's one is so much shorter.
Hmm. This one's on ATVs. It's about 2.5 pages long. Okay, so it doesn't have to be super long, and I think kind of like what Chris is saying, the shorter the better for this particular um, thing. So yeah, we don't want to wax poetic. Okay.
I lean behind that same sentiment. I think this is wonderfully thorough. It's got great detail. It's referenced. It's well organized. It's well written. Everything Josh Shakey was saying. I just if it gets too broad ranging or tries to be fully inclusive, it may lose the impact of a shorter but sweeter statement. Whereas those other elements may blend in better into a perspectives piece.
I do like the bullet aspect of it, like or the numbered aspect of it, because again, you can get so deep into these collateral issues that are inseparable that using the numbered bullet approach, I think, kind of really keeps it nice and clean about what people should be thinking, one after the other after the other.
Yeah, it kind of like builds on that. Sorry, who was I didn't recognize the voice of the person who just commented before Chris.
Oh,
I
it
saw
was
me
Ramin.
looking. Oh, okay. Thank you, Ramin. Okay. All right. So just going through those points, then mainly, the first one is just saying that climate change is real and it's man-made, and then that it negatively
Can I ask a question
impacts.
on this?
Yes, of course.
I see you used anthropogenic GHG emissions. Is that to avoid using man-made and its political connotations?
No, I mean, we could say man-made.
Because
Anthropogenic is a word that's out there that gets used in this context.
Yeah.
But if man-made seems like it's more accessible to people as a reference point, then certainly I think we can change it. And I think actually Richard might have had that in his suggested
I did.
comments.
I did not think that the general population of APSA
Yeah,
for that particular
Oh,
word, whereas
come
human
on.
man slash is fine.
and honestly, in my mind, I debate whether to take away man-made because you don't want to inflame people. And
I put human associated.
The thing though, and I'll push back, and obviously, I just like, we need to acknowledge that this is a human caused problem, right? Like that, I don't know. I personally feel like our organization needs to come out and recognize like this carbon didn't just sort of like spontaneously develop in the atmosphere, right? And so
yeah.
again, it gets a little bit political and it may be a little bit inflammatory, but it's also the truth. And it's also where the scientific consensus from other organizations sits, right? There's no equivocating from other scientific organizations. And I don't think we should shy away from the fact that we are a scientific, albeit not a basic science, but a scientific organization. And this is a fact.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Colleen. I just hate to have one or two words trigger something and some board members or who disagree and then like destroy the whole thing. And I think the statement is not trying to adjudicate whether it's man-made or not. We all know that. The point of the statement is to highlight what we as APSA and pediatric surgeons can do about it. And so I know, from social media that this man-made climate change, it triggers a lot of emotions and one way or the other, and it's sad, but it is. And so I wonder if using like industrial GHG emissions, which is man-made, would make that trigger less possible. I don't know.
The rest of the thing is describing in great detail how human associated things are causing this. So right? Like, look.
You
It's
could
talking about hospital waste. It's talking about all sorts of things related to human associated stuff, some of which we can't help, but hopefully we can mitigate.
Grace.
I would like to also echo like how well this was written,
Yeah.
but I do think it would there'd be more value if, and I don't know if APSA would be willing to do this though, to put in a percentage of greenhouse gas emission reduction. We would, as an organization, would be willing to try to obtain by a set year.
I think what would be nice is if when we bring this to APSA as a thing, and again, like I will defer to some of the other people on the committee who have done this. I think, Ken, you've probably had some work in this area, but how you move a position statement forward within APSA. But I would kind of like to see us hand in hand say, we want you to adopt this position statement. We also think that as an organization, we should commit to the National Climate Pledge, if that's even still going to be a thing.
Right.
In which case, then we're committing to, the ask would be 50% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050.
Yeah, that's
So
part
I
of the
think,
climate pledge.
and even if they, even if the pledge goes away, that, I think that's a great thing would be to say, we need to act on this as well.
Would that be something that we would put down further here to specify like a percentage?
I don't see that, and we
Mhm.
kind of when we talked about this the
We
other day,
talked about
Linda,
this
like
before, yeah.
my concern with getting too specific was that then it becomes limited, right? Like APSA should be an organization that has ongoing policy of supporting climate initiatives and mitigation strategies. And if we get too specific about listing the strategies here, then I feel like it's not so much a position statement anymore as it becomes an action plan, if there's like, if that's even like an official document or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, I think we want this to remain broad and then keep the specifics if we need to craft something different. But I think I would try and keep this. I don't think I would put the percentages in here.
Kind of going back. Ken,
Just
go ahead.
talking about what the board would probably do, my guess, just total guess, is that they'll support the intent. I think if you put hard percentages, one where without having had an estimate of how much we're actually currently contributing, I don't think anyone will support a number, whatever that number is. I think it'll be hard to actually instill, because then you do have to come up with an action plan of how you're actually going to produce that.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. You always have great wisdom for us. And I think that's a good point. Just going back to this question about using the word man-made, like for me, I favor putting it in. And the reason why is, I feel like it is a position statement. So we want to adopt, where APSA's understanding and thoughts are from a pediatric surgeon's group point of view. And the thing that I'm concerned about to say that, climate change exists and it's just there, but it's not man-made, like not putting that part into the equation, then, what is our responsibility then for addressing it? Right. I mean, I feel like if it's something that was created by the activities of humanity on the earth, then is it not a mandate for us then to address that and correct it? So
I might have missed it, but you can simply say human. I mean, that's basically
Yeah,
it.
we
It's the
talked to
consequence.
human associated, perhaps. I wrote in an edit.
I like humanist. Yeah, I think just as long as it's okay, so we can man-made, human
It's not,
associated.
it's certainly not, environmental. It's the,
Yeah, it's not just a
this is the
fluctuation. I think
this is the consequences of human activity.
Right.
right. I do feel like that's an important place to establish for us to even go into whatever we want to do or don't want to do about it. Okay. Everybody okay with human associated? Because if you're okay with that, I'm calling others.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds fine.
Okay. All right. Then increase carbon dioxide concentration as enhanced greenhouse gas, leading to increased global temperature, sea rise, extreme weather events, agricultural system, biodiversity, and population displacement. And then it goes into that these affect human health. And I kind of wanted to say, I guess, either up there or down here about the specific, okay, just human health, and then children in particular, and children's like surgical problems. Do you guys feel like that's important or?
I'm not sure that there's good enough Colleen and I have debated this. I'm not sure there's good enough real data to say maybe we could keep it like, I like it the way it is, but what do you think, Colleen?
Yeah, I mean, Linda, we looked at the article, that gastroschisis article the other day, and it's like a big database study.
Yes.
And again, like it may very well be a real thing. I just don't know that we want to hang our hat on that for something that's this important. And that's really, it's not the only study out there that you could make a connection to pediatric surgery, right? Like you can look at all of the studies that show that preterm labor is a consequence of heat exposure. And then we all know that preterm labor has all of the things that go along with it that impact our patients. But that becomes then a very long thing to spell out. So I think I would not try and get into the weeds about pediatric surgery specific things necessarily. I think we'd have to acknowledge that we sort of straddle two professions in terms of surgery and pediatrics, and I think I would leave it as it is. I mean, that would be my bias rather than trying to specifically nail down something pediatric surgical to include.
I agree
What about the
completely,
other
and
big John?
I think the way you guys wrote it is it's really good. It's vague but not too vague. It's I like it. That's it. That's number 3 essentially.
Number 3, yeah.
Yeah.
What
Mhm.
about the big genre that Alfred was talking about like traumatic injuries and conflicts due to displacement?
Yeah, I think that would fit nicely there, actually.
Okay.
I think anesthetic risk is another big one. Again, not well studied, but easily extrapolated. But I would agree, trauma is the one that you can point to most easily.
What am I trying to say? Cool.
Conflict.
Can you tell me more about anesthetic? I know about anesthetic gases becoming greenhouse gases, but is there oh, you mean like emissions and stuff like that, increasing the risk for anesthesia?
With the air, like the pulmonary effects of climate change on children, which are very well documented, there's increased anesthetic risk with surgery.
The worsening asthma and worsening respiratory problems, yeah.
Is there something published on that?
There's a lot published on pulmonary effects of climate change for children. The connection directly to anesthesia I haven't seen, but it comes up a lot in the anesthetic circles. So again, it's an extrapolation without something that you can like point to a specific study. I can ask
It's
Liz if she's aware of any. Liz Martin.
I agree with the sentiment that trying to limit our reliance on extrapolations or interesting but soft evidence probably benefits us, particularly as we head into more politicized and divided times. If arguments are resting on softer evidence basis or even perceived as such or can be twisted as such, and they undercut, a soft database study or a logical extrapolation and throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I think we want to avoid that. We want to get the big picture message across.
Mm-hmm.
There's one guy's opinion.
I mean, one other, I don't think it's too much to add in, but access is a big one. With all these climate associated disasters, it further limits access to surgical care for populations who often or already have limited access.
I think that probably is, again, without specifically spelling out, but is covered in the environmental justice statement.
Yeah, I feel like it's in 4. I wanted to go back to Raman's comment earlier. That was you, right? Every time it's like a disembodied voice and no picture comes up. I assume it's you
Yeah,
now.
sorry, I'm struggling with IT here, and I know if I turn on the video, I'm going to lose all my bandwidth. So sorry, that's
No,
me.
no,
The
no
talking.
worries. Was there something you wanted to add in? Because I think I was going around my screen. I didn't catch where you wanted to insert your comment.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting an addition anywhere. I was just respectfully cautioning against reliance on softer evidence
Okay.
or being more inclusive of those things. I think we should bring out what's reasonably hard and reliable and get the big picture point across, but not leave ourselves susceptible to the
Red herrings and stuff.
and the predictable criticisms of limited studies, and then have people miss the big picture of what we're trying to get across on the basis of nickel and diming small stuff.
Sure. Okay. All right. So then I'm sorry if you guys hear children screaming in my background. Eventually, I have to go up there and stop that. Okay. So then 4 is about climate justice, which I think is, I just really like the way Pauline did this and kind of built up.
Yep. It looks great.
And then so this is kind of like our action statement or call to action. That as a profession in the industry, it is imperative that the U.S. healthcare sector address its contribution and support efforts to remediate existing environmental degradation. Hospital systems and healthcare-related organizations should aim to reduce their negative environmental impacts of their own activities by taking action to eliminate greenhouse gases, decrease waste, while simultaneously supporting policies to improve planetary, therefore human health, in a way that is just and equitable. Any thoughts about that? I'm also looking in the chat because I realize people are writing in there. Wynn had said it may be a good time to try the release of this position statement with a more comprehensive review or perspective pieces. That way the position statement can stay brief while these are more, yeah. I agree. I don't know where the comprehensive review is at, so we'll get to that further down in the agenda. But I don't necessarily want to wait a really, really long time before we really talk about this position statement. Okay, I'm going to go on to point 6, which is our last point. Surgeons have a unique responsibility to engage in this work, as operating rooms are responsible for a disproportionate amount of the supplies and the energies used in a hospital, as well as for generating the majority of hospitals' waste. While patient safety needs to remain forefront, environmental impact should also be considered in surgical decision making. To aid surgeons in this endeavor, it's critically important that there is full transparency and environmental reporting from the healthcare supply chain. Is there anything more that we ought to add about that, or just that there is full transparency?
No, I like it. Maybe perhaps we should also add that we as surgeons should be advocates within our institutions to beyond that, just like pushing our hospitals to do everything possible but I don't know. I mean, it says some of it there about the supply chain, but rather than specifically just focusing just on supply chain, maybe. And I'm struggling with that in my hospital. I can't make a dent, but so I don't know. The rest of you who have done a dent have made a difference. But to empower, basically to empower surgeons to seek advocacy and beyond our sphere of the operating room and do more than just the operating room. But I would have to think about how to put it.
As it's an APSA statement, should we not use the word pediatric surgeon?
Yeah, good point.
It's Ramin, the ghost head of Zoom. I would offer, as we're picking on these very fine details, a subtle thing where I think it says surgeons have a unique responsibility You could change that to opportunity, responsibility, and it's just how firm we want to be about it or how dictatorial we want to be. That suggests an obligation, which many of us feel, but may not be how everybody feels. Whereas an opportunity and unique opportunity or poised to contribute in a unique way is more inviting and motivating. I know that's minor. I know it's a one-word thing I'm talking about, but as we're trying to get this perfect before it goes in black and white with people's names on it, that's for consideration.
Thoughts?
Can we
I
use
sort of,
I like the responsibility part too. It's not just the opportunity.
yeah, I feel like it should be like a call to action for us to, you know, engage and, you know, kind of say that it's a little bit more than an opportunity. Like, do we owe it to our patients to be more proactive about this?
That's sort of the way I felt when I was writing the editorial for the APSA manuscript, because it was one, an opportunity. It was two, a good chance, because you only had, you know, had to be really brief about it. And I chose, I think the verbiage was, you know, that the surgeon had the unique opportunity in the, you know, to be that operating room champion. Now, I know Alfred said something, you know, there's opportunities and responsibilities beyond the operating room. But let's face it, you know, getting our membership to consider the climate impact, you know, the health consequences of climate impact is one, and then to actually do something about it right there in the operating room would be, I think, in and of itself, kind of profound.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the beyond the sphere, the operating room idea, because I sort of feel like, you know, that's our little area. Um, but you know, I can see as part of advocacy that you know, should expand beyond the operating room. I'm just not sure how other surgeons may feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I brought it up. I mean, not to say that being champions in the operating room is not key and absolutely vital, but I'll have to look at my data, at what I've read before. But the majority of the energy, the impact of the operating room is not in what we generate, is actually the energy that the hospital uses to run the operating rooms. And
Yeah,
so,
like the
Absolutely.
HVAC.
Absolutely.
so what we can do, we can do a lot in recycling and reducing and reorganizing trays and all that stuff, but we still would not be hitting the majority of the impact of the operating room. And that's why I thought to include both of them.
Yeah. It should be like within and beyond the sphere of the operating room.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we should add something about just as a call for action that, you know, there's a lot to be done, but every bit counts. And that, you know, starting small and building up is a road for success. Because it's a daunting problem when you first explore it in your operating room. So just a thought.
Yeah. It's just it ends just on full transparency in the environment in the environmental impact reporting. So I feel like it's a little bit more than just full transparency, right? Because we want to have reporting and stuff like that, but we also want action.
The intent of that sentence was that right now, if you ask what the carbon footprint of a trocar is or a ligature, there's not an answer, right? So if we are asking surgeons to be quote unquote eco-conscious in the operating room, we need to demand that the supply chain does their part and is transparent in what they're telling us. So that was just a very specific statement with regarding transparency from the healthcare supply chain.
So maybe after this, we could add in something about what Annie was saying. Each of these actions, you want to start small, but it ought to build up for all of us to make a difference or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else was saying something before I interrupted.
I was saying that perhaps we can say, and beyond the operating rooms, pediatric surgeons should be involved in trying to minimize the environmental impact of the healthcare supply chain, energy supplies, and among others, and or something like that, because getting the transparency is key, is very important, but it's one of many things. And so,
I mean, I don't think it would be an unreasonable thing to add a statement along the lines of surgeons hold a unique and privileged position within their organizations and should also work on this, outside of the operating room. Like, I think we could put that in there easily enough, like just add a sentence to that.
Do you think you could say that again?
Yeah, that was.
I don't know. I'll think of it.
The recording.
I'll wordsmith it out.
Okay.
There definitely is value to adding in that idea in a sentence or two also, that every little bit counts, right? Better to light a single candle than to curse the darkness. And as to our role in the operating room, we are, whether you view it as coach, captain, whatever, but our role, our mood in the operating room definitely influences and leads behavior. And part of that is, when people see a surgeon come in who says, "Oh, no, wait, don't open any disposables, don't open any sutures, I'll pull the specific things I need," and it changes behavior, it changes habits. There's just less waste, and every little bit counts.
Hello. I mean, a face to the voice. I just going back to the chat, I saw that Sarah had talked about for number 4. So let's roll back there for a second here. And can we use minoritize rather than minority? That minoritize here? Is this it?
Yeah,
I haven't used the word minoritize, but you
it
did.
implies that like a group has been marginalized because of external actions rather than their own.
That they're just inherently like a minority, like that's their trait.
Yeah, which from a global perspective, many of these groups are actually not the minority, but they have been minoritized.
So should we just use the word
Marginalized or
marginalized instead of minoritized? Because minoritized feels a little clunky.
Or with marginalized, we'll usually say groups that have been marginalized.
Yeah.
Again, to take the fault away, that should never be there in the first place.
Recognize groups that have been marginalized. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Sarah, you said something about truly improving lives will require sustained and tailored focus on mitigating. Is this wordsmithing one particular sentence here?
Just to add to
talked about here?
The conversation of the very last to try to make it a little bit more broad. I think overall you guys have done an amazing job trying to provide some specifics, but also a broader context. And this isn't like a detailed what to do. It's the broader overarching picture. It was just playing around with words.
So you're thinking about it for point 6?
Yes, like somehow in just something like a final line.
Or should we put it in here, the concluding paragraph? Here's this word again. Shall we change this to human associated? I don't know if I can or not. Mm.
I might change mindful to aware in that last paragraph. I think mindful has different connotations depending on the context in which it's used.
What connotations?
Some people hate it.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Is it like woke?
Yeah,
Okay.
in a
I've never-
way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It tends to be a fairly reactive
What were you saying,
thing that
Alfred?
I've seen.
I said I did not know that connotation of mindful.
I'm putting your,
Some people perceive it as pretty judgy. You'd be thoughtful, you'd be deliberate. You say mindful, and they think it's judgy, lefty, radical, whatever.
Maybe I was being judgy.
Or sometimes it's used in a context of like, like wellness pizza. It's not enough. It's a band-aid.
should we put this sentence here? Or no, it kind of interrupts the flow. I think you intended for it to go here at the end of 6, right? Or somewhere within 6.
Yeah, just to try to draw it together, but it may not even be needed.
Okay. Anyways, I'll drop it there and highlight it, and we can massage it further. Okay. All right, guys, that was good. Oh, one more message from Sarah. I have a blank. I'm not sure what this is. A document.
Oh, for me? Oh, sorry. I
Um,
have no idea what I was sending.
Oh, okay. Couldn't find the URL for the last reference. Says page not found. 20. This one. Whatever. Broken link on our thing. Here, this one. I guess you have to do a copy paste. I don't know. Or you can fix the citation so that it works
Yeah, and I just
better
put
than
like
just a
web
I know.
links for the time being. Like I will have to go through and actually like use a standardized format for it. So all the references will need to get cleaned up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. That was really good. Okay, we have
So can I actually ask a question though?
sure.
And honestly, Ken, this question is geared to you because I feel like you're the person that's going to know the answer. What do we do with this once we as a group have decided it looks okay? Like, how do we move this forward?
I would submit it to Tom Tracy, and he would end up having that distributed amongst the board. And the board will review it and give the blessing if nothing needs to be changed, or if not, it's not there's concern or a request, then it'll be put back to the committee, and after that, it gets approved and gets put on somewhere onto the website.
Right.
So pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Is it
It's a-
published elsewhere other than the website? Or is that kind of where
I
it
think it
usually
usually
lives?
lives on the website. It does not end up being a document elsewhere. So I don't know of any other place that you can publish it, short of some sort of op-ed or some sort of,
Perspectives paper.
you could do a perspectives paper for sure. I mean, that's something that WIT is suggesting a lot of groups do, and would certainly be something to think about writing. I haven't seen a word count limit for the perspectives. I think we'd have to figure out how much that is. It's clearly a shorter document.
He gave it to us. If I can
Oh,
just
did he?
minimize that page. Yes. So hold on. Let me
1,800
just
words, Joanne just wrote down.
thank you. Yeah,
Hi.
15 to 18. Hi, Joanne. It's
Hi
on
there.
your comment in the text box.
Yes.
Okay.
And
We
also,
can't-
just like Ken was saying, the position statement is generally published on the advocacy page, and it can also be sent out in the 2-minute turnover. And that's generally how it reaches the membership once it's approved, just to answer your questions.
But you are right. The question is how you get to the broader blogosphere, for the lack of a better term, the rest of the world. And I don't know. I don't honestly know how else you get that out there.
What about, I've had a CAPS policy once on the blood-borne pathogen published in JPS.
That ended up being a paper. I'm pretty sure I recall it. It was a fairly long document. It was a true paper.
Okay.
That could be done too. Obviously, a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think our original plan was to also have it referred to in the perspective paper, but we would just flesh it out a lot more. We could be a little bit more specific with examples and stuff like that in the perspectives paper.
We can
Rich?
certainly ask, we will have Dr. Tracy and Dr. Holcomb with us in our larger meeting in a week, and we can certainly ask these questions.
Yeah, and Sarah asked, would it be possible to ask APSA to highlight their commitment to climate change and send via the 2-minute turnover? It sounds like yes.
That will be the venue where we will ask that question.
Okay. Okay, so then the next agenda item, I don't think we're going to get through everything. The perspectives, Colleen, Chris, and I are working on a draft. We need to decide on a deadline, because I feel like we don't have a deadline. It's hard to get more momentum on this, but Chris, Colleen, do you guys want to?
I have time next week. I dedicate to sort of finishing that up. I got 2 writing projects. That's one of them. So I'll send you guys both something by the end of next week.
Okay, sounds perfect. And then the review, Sharmi was taking the lead on that, but I don't think she's on tonight. Don't see her, so
No, she's on call.
Okay, so she didn't tell me about any updates, so I don't have any updates for that. Then also, Annie, do you know anything about the it says New York Times, but it's we changed it to the Toronto Star. Toronto Star, yes. She said she had a draft. Do you know anything about this?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen the draft yet, so I'll make sure I follow up with her this week. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Linda,
And yes, who is that?
review is like a beefed up perspective with references, like a literature review and all that. How would the perspective differ from review?
I don't think we were planning on making it that comprehensive. For the review, I know that there have been a number of works that have been done recently. And for example, I think Lynn in particular, right? She had done a review with some of her projects. And so we were thinking about putting something together with that, but that would be a lot more extensive. The perspective is only 1,500 word count, so you really can't, it can't be too long.
Yeah, I've written a few
And there's
reviews.
only 5 references for it too.
I've done a few reviews for different kind of topics, largely around this greater topic, and I'm happy to help flesh out some of the sources and the details with writing too.
Perfect. Do you think you could get in touch with Sharmi and see what you guys can put together?
Yeah, I'd be happy to reach out and see what ways I can support them for sure.
Okay. It sounds like she's restarting on the clinical rotations, but maybe there'll be some time during some of her rotations are a little, less involved. Okay. So then the next one is the seminars in pediatric surgery. We had an invitation to write an article about advocacy for OR sustainability. That's just the title that was proposed. We can change it. And so I think we haven't started working on that yet, but we'll start working on that after we finish with the perspectives and the position statement. So this one, the only thing I guess that would be helpful for us to gather tonight is Marian asked a little while ago actually for a list of co-authors. So wanted to ask who would be interested in working on this.
I'll volunteer. I mean,
I can help.
I'd be happy to help.
And was that Sarah?
Yes, and I heard Alfred and Grace.
Yeah, I got out. Oh, did Grace say something? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Colleen, you were in on the email, so I'm gonna put you on there. Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to help too.
Win. Okay. Okay. All right. The deadline for this is a draft by January 16th. So just for all of us to know. Okay, and then in our last few minutes, Colleen, any updates for the survey that you're working on?
Not yet. I'll let you know when we have something more consistent to go forward on.
Okay, you have a volunteer. Ramin said that he would like to participate.
Yep, I saw that.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
And any updates from the NISQIP?
To be honest, it's been kind of frustratingly disappointing. So I don't really know that we're going to make a whole lot of headway. We certainly haven't made any yet. So if anything changes, we'll let you know. But it's been challenging.
Hey,
yeah, Sarah.
there's a PEDS NISQIP equity working group now. That came out of the frustration that there's no NISQIP measures pertaining to equity that are available in the publicly available data. It's something I could bring to that group because they've been able to make a little bit of traction now with potentially including some of those measures. And it's going to be very limited, but at least it's something. I think it just based on that experience, it would be probably like one thing or two, but I could bring it up if wanted.
Sure.
Sarah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you offer an example?
An example
of a metric that would be included?
So it's still very much under discussion. We just got like word that they may consider it, and the goal is in the end, part of it to include kind of an equity report card within the NISQIP reports that are given back to institutions. And so the details of what they're going to consider are still honestly very nebulous, but there's some potential for geocoded information so that you could pull socioeconomic data.
I'm really curious. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's still like so early in that, oh yeah, now we'll consider it after it's been 2.5 years of pushing.
Maybe one of the equity reports could be the quality improvement initiatives.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Sarah, back to you with the GICS Climate Justice Working Group. Were there any updates?
No big updates in the process of finalizing the survey for the GICS membership to look at priorities and action items.
You will share the survey with us so we can participate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just, if you need numbers, responses, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys, we made it all within an hour. Thank you all. Okay, I'm gonna stop share. We'll be in touch, okay?
Thanks for keeping us on
Thank
task.
you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. Oh wait, couple of messages. Let me see. Anything we need to, well, medical students need help to know. Okay, just main thing about Sharmi, she's still a medical student. Well, and support her membership. We need to help her join before any publication affiliation with the committee. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you.